So this is the male. And you can see that he's a lot lighter in coloration right now than he was previously in the other tank. He is standing straight up. He's going to do just fine. Absolutely stunning fish though, isn't he? Beautiful. One of my favorite discus is some of the solid colors. But blues have always been a challenge for me. I've bred them in the past, but not in numbers as high as I've done with other varieties of discus. Now, of course, the female. Look, the male's already down sucking. So I'm going to try to get them into locations that are very close to each other. I don't want to break that bonding, but a lot of the times when discus move their tanks, it can induce spawning. Meaning that maybe they're not breeding in your tank, but the minute you move them to somewhere else, a lot of the times it triggers them to do so. A change in surroundings. I think these guys will be perfect in this tank. The female is obviously doing a little bit better, but she does see her male there. She's like, come on up, bro, please get up. She's like, we got a new tank. We can do this. Aw, she laid her cheek up against them. So this is a great opportunity to kind of get a good look at his profile, and you can kind of see the differences in males versus females. The male develops a slight nuchal hump versus the female. I don't know if we're going to see that or not. And of course, at times their dorsal fin will be a little more pointed as well. I'm going to let these guys settle in a little bit before we talk any more about them, but I have a bunch of things that I want to tell you about and discuss, and mostly focusing on things that we're going to be doing that will lead to the success of breeding these guys and making sure they remain healthy and vibrant. As soon as they want to stop pouting, but discus will do that. So the discus are in the tank now. They are doing fine. Of course, it's been less than 24 hours, so they might be a little bit shy, but they are out throughout the entire aquarium exploring. It is a very large tank for just 2 fish, and I'm pleased to see that they've maintained that bond between them. I also put this towel up because I noticed in the last video I was talking like this. The lights were too bright. In my experience, when you move a discus pair, one of 3 things can happen. The biggest thing is when you have a proven pair and they're not breeding in that tank, if moving anything around in the tank or a big water change or trying to induce breeding with live feeding, like California blackworms, for example, doesn't work, move them to a new tank. And that, a lot of the times, within like 24 hours, they will spawn. However, it also potentially breaks the pair and or they'll still stick together but never breed again. So there is some minor risks when moving a breeding pair of discus from tank to tank, but for the most part, like 9 out of 10 times, they'll always breed. So I'm happy to see these two are sticking together, the male kind of leading the way, the female trailing behind him. That's not uncommon. She's showing interest. When he's ready, he will display to her, encourage her to lay the eggs, and of course fertilize them, and we'll go from there. Where they'll do that in this tank, I do not know. But I do want to use this opportunity to kind of talk about water quality and the parameters of it when getting into discus. And I'm going to apply this to everything that I keep. You guys know that I have seahorses, octopus, South American cichlids, brackish waterfish. We've got pufferfish, saltwater pufferfish. We've got freshwater pufferfish. We've got freshwater stingrays. We've got Asian arowana. We've got piranha. We've got discus. All different types of fish that on paper require all different types of water parameters. Do they though? What do you think the pH of my water is for every tank? To summarize that, I don't know. I'm literally asking you, do you know what it is? Because I don't. I knew what it was about 10 years ago though, when I bought this house, and you get the water report, and it showed me the pH was about 7.6 to 7.8 depending on the season. Water was hard enough to stand on, and it had lovely little levels of arsenic and all these other little flavors and spices that are in it that I don't want in it, but the levels are so low that it's no real concern. Being on a well is a wonderful thing because I don't have to pre-treat the water, buy $10 worth of water treatment a month.
But I do have to worry about what's getting into the spring and into the well throughout the seasons. In the spring, of course, when all of that snow melts and all the rain's flushing through the earth, Lord knows what it's bringing with it. And it can be a dangerous time, and it's the only time I've ever noticed fish acting weird after a water change. But you can add things that'll neutralize things that you don't know that's in the water, that maybe there's a spike in something. ACCR, I think it's called. Fritz makes it. It's a powder, a little sprinkle of that. I've only had to do that twice this year. I noticed that the Oscars were acting weird after a water change. I did a really big one. Temperature was right, and I thought, maybe there's something in the water. It is spring. This is a bad idea to do this big of a water change right now, but they're pigs, and I had to do it. So moving forward for the next 3 months, I won't do anything bigger than 30% on these tanks. So how the heck am I keeping Discus in pH of 7.6? How did I breed so many Discus in a pH of 7.6 and a really hard water when they come from incredibly acidic and soft water conditions? Well, these are not wild Discus, first and foremost, and chances of you owning wild fish are slim to none. Although a lot of the times, some people that are truly against keeping wild caught fish, if I ever get to have a look at their tank, some of those fish aren't being bred in captivity yet in numbers to sustain the hobby, and they sometimes have wild-caught fish and don't even know it. So given the fact that these are not wild-caught fish, I don't really need to chase those numbers, and that's the topic of what I'd like to talk about, is chasing numbers in general. Why do people do it? Why do we constantly test pH and hardness in a freshwater aquarium and then dump in some pH up, pH down, add in some buffers, add this, add that? Why do we do it? Because of two reasons. One, it's one of the things that we could test for in the hobby, and if we couldn't test for it, we probably wouldn't care about it. Two, it's easy to treat and then test again. You get to feel like a little scientist. So what we're doing here is, instead of having whatever's coming out of your tap and giving them ideal straight across the board, even though it's not perfect or what they have in the wild, what we do is we have these fluctuating numbers and fluctuating everything within your aquarium. All the tanks out here, and you got to ask yourself, what do you think your fish prefer? This, while you chase those numbers, regardless of how you do it, whether you're treating the water in there and then it goes into the tank afterwards treated, are you buffering the water? Is it going to be able to come back up or go back down, etc.? There's so many things that can go wrong when you start messing with the water. Or do you think they prefer, okay, this isn't perfect, but at least it's consistently the same all the time? Obviously, consistency the same all the time. Every aquarium out here is on the same water, pH of 7.6. Temperatures fluctuate from 25 to 28 degrees Celsius, depending on the water temperature. I bred the Discus in all types of temperatures and sizes of tanks. Hardness, hard enough to stand on. There are pros and cons for it. For me, the cons with hard water is hard water stains. Other than that, I don't really care. But when you're chasing pH, one of the bad things that can happen, and one of the effects that it has on the fish, and the most immediate effects, is we're not just worrying about the fish. You have bacteria in your filter. And constantly putting them through acidic and alkaline conditions could potentially be killing them off. Ammonia is far more toxic in alkaline conditions than it is in acidic. So sometimes when the fish have acidic water, so you're like, oh no, my pH is too low, I better raise it. Well, you might even have ammonia in your water and not even know it, and then once your pH comes up, it now becomes incredibly toxic to them. Leave your water alone, I guess, is the moral of the story. Simplicity and consistency is key. I wrote that in my book 9 years ago. This isn't anything new. I've been applying this method of fish keeping to every aquarium that I've had for probably 17 of the 20 years. The first 3 years of my hobby, we don't like to talk about that, or at least the first couple years. Get a fish, add it to the tank gets cloudy, clean everything, add in some carbon, change all the water, clean everything, constantly doing that. And then, somebody taught me about the nitrogen cycle, the single most important factor of our hobby, period. At the end of the day, we are keeping bacteria as the main animal or organism, and the fish are the food. They produce, along with decaying matter in the tank and uneaten food and whatnot, but they are what feeds our bacteria. That is the single most important factor. pH, hardness, all that stuff, I could care less. Now, I'm not saying that you need to do this as well. However, if you apply consistent husbandry to your aquariums in the most simplistic manner, I can assure you, your fish will be happier, and so will you. Anyways, end of rant.